Welcome to the Change Book Podcast. My name is Rachel Best, and this is our co-host.
I'm Nicole Harvick.
And this is the Change Book series. It is the fastest growing self-empowerment book series on the planet.
This spans over 30 countries, and we now bring them all together in a powerful podcast destined to change people from all corners of the globe.
So go ahead and grab your pen and paper, because our guest today is going to share a lot of amazing tips and inspiration that you're definitely going to want to write down.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Harvick, and I am your host for the Change Book Podcast. Today, we have Susan Kennard as our guest. And as I was reading over her bio, I jotted a few things down, but I really can't do it justice. So I'm going to give you a tidbit, and then I'm going to turn it over to her. Susan is a spiritual scientist, and I'm, of course, going to have to ask her to explain that. She's trained in not only psychology, but psychotherapy, and has other healing modalities in her practice. So with that, Susan, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you for having me on here. This is a great podcast. Excited.
Good. Well, I would love to hear more about you, because I read your bio, and it's for someone like me who I also have spirituality inclinations, I would love to hear about you. Tell us what got you started on this path.
Sure. Well, goodness, there are many
I know.
there are many awakenings that happen in our life, of course. But if I explain a bit about the spiritual science, that might kind of open the door for it. Essentially, traditionally trained. So traditionally trained in psychology, psychotherapy, as you said. I'm also a neuropsychologist. I'm a naturopath. I'm many of those things. And what I feel is really important is balancing the science and the spiritual. And so I had an awakening age 27, and a long time ago now. And this awakening, which I outline in my podcast, actually, in my book and in the Change book, which is great, actually says that this beautiful soul that actually decided to take their life came to me a few months after. And this was my awakening, because I'd always seen things as a psychologist as kind of like black and white and looking at the mind. And actually, this allowed me to look at the mind, body, and the soul. And I realized that we were so much more than who we were. And that took me on a journey of meditation. I was doing my postgraduate degree at the time, and, it quietened my mind. It allowed me to understand a bit more about myself. And that was just the start of the journey, and then I started to incorporate what I knew scientifically, and I'm very evidence-based. So for me, the spiritual, I had to really kind of unpick it and say, no, this can't be true. And I had to evidence it for myself, before I even spoke about it. So I kept it to myself for quite a long time. And I trained at the College of Psychic Studies in Kensington, which is a very well-known place in London. And I basically went there to try and disprove what I was being shown and what I was hearing from spirit, which I didn't know at the time was that. And I couldn't disprove it, because I could see spirit. I could see what was going on. I knew stuff that people had never told me. And this is how my awakening happened. So now, all those years later, I incorporate the spiritual and the science, and I help people to heal. And what happens is, when people heal at a cellular frequency level, of course, what they attract into their experience is a mirror of their own vibration. So, this is fast tracking right through all the years of me resisting being a medium, resisting being a channel for source, all of that stuff. I also speak light language. I work with the galactics. It's a myriad of experiences that I bring to my work. But essentially, I help people and empower them to live their mission. And I'm all about incorporating both. So when I work with dis-ease in the body, or dis-ease in the mind, or dis-ease somewhere in their financial or mission base, it's all incorporated into one. So that's kind of what the spiritual science is about.
You know, one thing you said is that you kept it to yourself, and I did that also.
Yeah.
Why do you think it is we don't speak our truth about our gifts when we have gifts
Wow.
like this?
I think what it's about is, I mean, it's great now because, we can stand on platforms and talk about spirit without any kind of issues. But in those times, and it was a long time ago now, actually, I worked in child protection. I was a trauma specialist. I worked with addiction and drugs and, domestic abuse and stuff. And it wasn't something that you really talked about. So I had this parallel life of doing that work and working as a medium on platforms. So I kind of had those two parts of my life. But I also feel that it's about stepping out of the spiritual closet, and it's about owning who you are. And for a long time, I had a practice in Harley Street, where I was known as a psychologist and a psychotherapist. And I used to use my psychic ability in my sessions, but I just wouldn't talk about it. And it just started to get to the point where it started to come out, and people would say to me, "How did you know that? How can you see that?" And I'm like, well, I used my intuition. And then I started getting interviewed about it, and I was on national TV, I was on Sky TV, I was doing all these interviews, I was in magazines, and it like started to steamroll. And that's when I stepped out of the spiritual closet. And I honestly think that when we do that, when we own who we truly are, which is a divine being of light, having a human experience, here to help humanity, when we actually own that, the world opens up, and then our journey of healing begins.
Yeah, it's really an amazing process, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, as I was going over your bio, I had a question. It says something about meta health.
Yeah, sure.
What
Yes.
is, I don't know what that is, and I would love to hear from you.
Sure. Meta health. Meta means looking at the whole picture. And it kind of originated from German New Medicine, which people can look up. But essentially what we're doing is we're looking at the metaphysical cause of dis-ease. So, in my training, I looked at brain scans and things like that. So I kind of became a bit like a doctor, even though I'm not a doctor. I became like a doctor, and I looked at brain scans, and I could see where on the brain scan, on a CT scan, that this disease was in the body. But we just take it a bit further. So we take it to the trauma piece. So when we have traumas, which I'm sure you totally get, we have traumas, and those traumas essentially goes into the heart, up to the brain, and into the frequency, but into the physical body. And so what we do as mental health practitioners is we're actually looking at the causal reason for why the body is showing the message. And of course, the biggest thing, and I've kind of expanded it in the way that I work, so not just how I was trained, because my guides just take me to wherever I need to go, but essentially it's about the soul's calling. So I believe that the soul is always trying to speak to us through our physical body. And so it's for us to listen to our body and just to listen to what the soul is trying to guide us to do, which I just think is a fascinating way to work, really.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I think our time is coming, but I wish more people understood that, because that's just the truth. It's, we've kind of been hijacked a little bit, if you will, throughout this last century, and a lot of conditions.
Part of it, hasn't it? I mean, it's been part of our journey of awakening. In these last few years, everyone's gone into a big awakening of who they are, and and I can see that the new earth and the old earth is still present, but yes, we're much more expanded into the new earth, which is abundance, freedom, healthy body, looking younger than we ever did before, and all of those kind of things are opening up. And I know in my community, I watch it every day, and it's exciting to see people expand. And I like to see, like everyone makes a choice for themselves. And the key thing, and my guides are kicking in here, the key thing is to remember that we are our own inner healers. Yes. We can heal ourselves, can't we, Nicole? We have the ability to heal ourselves. It's just we need facilitators to assist us and support us, which is perfectly fine. Perhaps we don't need to always look at something to fix us. And I think we've learned that over the last couple of years, more than any other time, that perhaps there isn't, a secret bullet that will heal everything within us or stop us from getting something. When we change our way of looking at healing and we change our way of looking at ourselves, then perhaps we don't need to look outside of ourselves for, that silver bullet, right? Which is never there.
Right.
It's the holy grail within.
I love how you put that, because, some people that I know are always looking for the next best thing. And, my dad is one example. Well, if I move here, if I do this, or if, and I tell him, doesn't matter where you move, where you go, you have to be happy on the inside with yourself. And then you're satisfied wherever you are. You can move, but it starts with the happiness, the inner happiness, the inner joy, the inner peace, the inner knowing. And then you may move on any place. But, a lot of people still want to fight that, when we've got that ego around us. And so I absolutely understand what you're saying. And I did hear you say light language. And that kicked in for me probably about 2 years ago. Would you like to explain that?
From my perspective, from my perspective of the way the guides work with me. So it's been several years now, probably about 4 or 5 years. I work with the galactics mostly. However, there are many beings that do come in and work with me. And I teach channeling as well. But essentially, light language is light coding. So when I speak light language, it's coming through in a way that it is with coded healing for people. So I'm just a channel, really, just that stream of consciousness that we all are. And I just happen to be a channel for that. I also bring forward toning, which obviously has a frequency of healing within it. And I teach people one of the things I teach is to help people to find their own healing sound. So we all have our ability to heal ourselves, which I talk about all the time, but essentially to have these awakenings and rememberings that we are actually a frequency match to our own healing journey. So if we can bring in those sounds and start to, kind of assimilate that within our life, then we've got that instant healing tool. But the Galactics, the Palladians, the Arcturians, the Syrian High Council actually work with me a lot at the moment. And I believe it's because they're coming in to really help us ascend to the next frequency of ascension, which is language that sometimes people don't understand, but essentially it is shifting timelines, but excelling to our best personal best. I suppose that's the best way I can sort of say it. It's like the best version of us, the most whole, the most enlightened, the most expanded version of ourselves, where we feel we're not looking outside of ourselves, like you were saying about some people, we're not looking outside of ourselves, that we are happy to be within, to know that we are enough without the extra stuff that people want all of the time.
I know. And I just wish more people knew that. And, one of the things, if they don't understand it, I always hope someone like you can plant a seed for them to at least take that first step into their own journey, because, to me, it's just miraculous. It's just, it's from the ancients. I mean, it's been around and no one realizes it's not new age at all. It's no. not even.
It's ancient age. I have galactic crystal healing chambers, which are remote chambers, and they were given to me on an 8/8 portal actually a few years ago. But essentially they were given because it's ancient knowledge. It's ancient healing knowledge. It's not something that's new. It's just bringing it forward now at this time when we need, this assistance so that we can be the lightest frequency we can be.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So tell me about your chapter in the Change Book series. I'm guessing you wrote about this, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. So I channeled it because I channel everything. So I sat one day, I'm very honored to be part of this. I'm very honored when I get invited to do something, I really feel into it before I accept. And I had a couple of conversations with the gyms before I said yes, but actually it felt right to me. And I put a couple of snippets from my actual own book, Awaken the Light Within Your Heart, but I actually added a few parts that were channeled from the guides. And essentially, they were talking about who we truly are, and actually understanding of who we are on this planet at this time. And so you'll have to read the book, if you're listening to this in the podcast, you have to read the Change book to actually get those nuggets of information. But essentially it was channeled from the guides, and it is really helping you to understand more about who you are. And I did put a little healing exercise in there as well for people.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
And I don't think for many, many years, I went through so many who I thought I was, the corporate worker, the mom, the wife, and I'll be honest, I dumbed myself down a lot as compared to what I know now. And I didn't speak my truth for a long time, which caused actually a lot of dis-ease in my body that I've been working on for a long, long time. So I love hearing somebody talk about our power instead of our weakness.
Yeah. And it's not a disease, it's actually a dis-ease. And when we can look at it as a message in the body rather than a sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
Or this is wrong with you. Actually, how interesting. Isn't it interesting how my body is showing that message to me? I wonder what it is that I need to heal within me. Yeah. And those kind of I wonder questions are really helpful for people, because rather than saying I need someone to actually fix it, and maybe that might be a really difficult journey for some people, but actually looking at what is the reason for this. There's this much bigger reason of why this is happening to me, rather than my body has let me down. Yeah, because your body is integrated into your true soul's expression. You chose, I love this, right? The guides are reminding me, if you imagine you took your jacket off, which is, your clothes and your body, right? If you were to take this off, underneath is pure light, pure wisdom, and the soul just doesn't care. It knows exactly why it's here. It doesn't worry about a thing. It's not bothered about bank balances or what clothes look good on you or where you need to be. It literally knows exactly why it came, and you are that. And then you just decide to put on a jacket, which is your human body, just this time anyway. And that's the sum of the parts of perhaps all of the times before, and the ancestral lineage, epigenetics, and what you've experienced in your childhood. Yeah, even from being in the womb. So all of that is held within your jacket. And gradually and slowly, as you know, we look at those parts of us that are showing up in the mirror of our life. And when we see something in the mirror of our life that we think, oh, I don't really like that, then our job is to look at what it is that's attracting that piece in the mirror of our life that we're not that keen on.
Oh, that's amazing. I need to remember that statement. That's very, very powerful.
It's a journey for us, isn't it? We have to keep reminding ourselves. I'm in a very blessed position because I teach this. So if I ever forget, I'm teaching it. I have to keep reminding myself because I teach it. I'm lucky. Yeah.
And you talk about the soul knowing what they came for.
Yeah.
And I had an experience once, because sometimes I go out of body, and I remember standing in my kitchen, and this was when I lived in Arizona, so it's been over a year, and I heard myself say, no, I know I came to do that. I made a promise. I never renege on a promise. I will do that for you. To this day, I still don't quite know what it is. I think I'm on the right path, but that's kind of the beauty of surrender, don't you think? When you let go and know that there's something higher than you that is guiding you, that soul versus that body.
Yes. And the universe has your back. You know, one of those rememberings that we have to have is that we did not come in to do it on our own. I don't mean that with partners and so on. We didn't come in on our own to do it on our own. We came in knowing that our body would talk to us. We knew that we had our guides, that we had our, team that work with us. And as our frequency shifts, new teams come in to work with us. And we knew that. And we knew that we were meant to ask for help. And if we didn't ask, then they had to stand by and watch. Yeah. And watch us feel, oh my God, I don't want to be here anymore, or this is too hard, or my bank balance is so low, or whatever it might be. Yeah. And so we always knew that. So I feel like we come into this world to forget, and then we spend the whole rest of our life trying to remember.
Isn't that crazy? I know. And as I look back on my past life, which is still this existence, but prior, it almost feels kind of like a dream state now. And I think that's because I have been awakened to something entirely different than who I was. Now, as a young child, as a young girl, I can remember like holding seances at about age 9. And everybody thinks that's evil, but I think I came in with it, but then we're all suppressed for a very long time. We're told to that's not your truth. Don't say that. That scares people, and then you just get more and more quiet, and then you stop talking about it. And then you become this individual that you really don't resonate with. As I'm looking back, I'm like, I don't know who that person was, that
was a journey, and it was a stepping stone. And, one of the things the guides are just saying, just to remind us that, not speaking from a religious perspective, but from a kind of unified field of consciousness perspective, that there is not a God outside of you. Like, you are source, you are God's source energy, that you are this energetic quantum field. There's not a man sitting on a cloud or a woman sitting on a cloud or that's going to judge you. That's all just, something that we've experienced and we've been told. Our truth is actually we are source energy.
Yes.
There is no judgment. There's no shame. There's no going to hell or anything like that. We are source energy. And what a great time to be here. Didn't we choose well?
Yeah? Oh, we did. And I was just talking to a lady yesterday, and I said, I feel so blessed to have picked this time to come back in, to really see the world not just change, because there's always going to be, like you said, those two worlds. There's that third, and there's, the upper realms. And it to me, I just wake up in gratitude every day. I wake up blessed. And I'm so happy to be here. And I told someone the other day, I said, I wish everybody could wake up feeling like this.
That's my mission. That's my mission. So my whole intention is that people remember who they are. That, if that's why I wrote my book, that's why I've decided to be in this book, is that if one person reads that information and they remember who they are, my job's done. And that's it. That's it. Like, if you remember who you are, how empowered do you feel? Yes, there's stuff that happens. It happens in my life as well, but it's an opportunity for us to say, okay, I'll come home. Okay, I remember who I am. Okay, good. I remember who I am. That's fine. All right. Now you show me what I need to do to expand that. Or to heal from that, or to move forward from that. And that's the piece, that we take responsibility for our own life and our own journey, and we don't blame anyone else if it doesn't go the way we want it to go, which is kind of a general thing that people do. And we're not responsible for anyone apart from animals, which obviously we're responsible for, and children. And those are the only beings that we're responsible for, and ourselves. And I think, we come into this world thinking we've got to save everyone, and that's completely the opposite, the opposite of what we came in for. we're meant to remember that we are a divine being of light here to heal ourselves and remember it and remember who we are. And that's kind of it, you know, and to have fun while we're doing it, you know?
Yes. And it's
Yeah.
such a relief to finally understand that
Yeah.
that I wasn't responsible for my ex. I couldn't heal him. As a healer, you always want to heal everybody.
Yeah.
And then to finally, after the divorce, realize that, you know, that wasn't about me, that was about him. He projected it onto me, but that was his story, not mine. And it's really like a breath of fresh air when you
And then
just
you attracted it, you know, and I'm the same, you know, I've got a bit of a story as well, which we all have. And I was like, so thankful. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Look at how I felt about myself when I attracted that situation. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, wow, look at how far that has taken me by being in that relationship, father of my children, actually, being in that relationship and actually saying, wow, that's really interesting how I was then and how I am now. And if I hadn't have been in that relationship, same as you, then you wouldn't be the place you are now.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's a blessing that these beautiful souls that come into our experience, who are part of who we are, of course, because we're all one, are here to say, now you look at yourself and one day you're going to actually step away from that and do the work, right?
Yes.
And you can choose not to because it's your journey. But actually, I give thanks every day for being in such a difficult situation, which I've written about in my book. It's such a difficult situation that it ended up being where I went on a big journey of healing. And I had 2 babies at the time who are now teenagers. So, you know, that kind of situation, and probably what you've been through as well, has led you to understand that you need to take responsibility for what you attract into your experience.
Yes. And I love that we can sit here and look back and be grateful for that experience, because it was really our stepping stone into who we are now.
One of them.
And I always say, and I always say, if I can just help one person, now I want to help a lot more, and I have helped my one, but I just look around and right now there seems to be a lot of people in a lot of pain. So I think, you know, our role is just started. You've had a lot, you know, you've been
so many people, you know, are expanding and growing. I definitely see it in my community. But, you know, my days of working with veterans with PTSD and serious trauma led me to realize that actually wherever you are in that experience of being human, you can move past it and really live the mission, what you actually came to do. And many of those veterans set up charities, helped other people with their own traumas. And that's exactly what I think we're on a journey of, being a channel to help others, is that we had to have gone through what we went through so that we at this time could be, and not in an ego sense, but could be a light for others.
Yes.
And I'm watching more and more people become lights for others, which is just so amazing, because the more we light up, the more others light up and they light us up. So we're all part of that unified field.
Oh, isn't it great? It's a beautiful thing when you realize that. Susan, what would you tell someone if they wanted to write a chapter in this book? How would you tell them it is?
Yeah. So whenever I'm creating anything, I always create a sacred space within my heart. I invite my guides in to come and be with me. And I ask, what would you like me to share with the world? Okay. And then just listen. And that's how I actually channeled my first book. And it's how I channeled this one as well. And I just typed, and I didn't know what I was saying. I don't remember half of it. And you just allow it to come through you as a stream of consciousness that you are. And the other thing to remember is that it's already written. That if you've been invited to come on board with the Change Book series, if you've been invited or you've seen it and you felt like it feels like a match for you and you've reached out, however it might have been, then know that there is a reason for that, and that you have a really important message to share with people coming from the wisdom of your heart.
Oh.
That's what I would say.
Susan, you said that so beautifully, and I thank you. And this has probably been the fastest interview I've ever done, and you are absolutely fascinating. And I'm so glad I get to meet you here. Hopefully someday in person, that would be lovely.
Well, we're working on that, aren't we? The universe is aligning for that to happen. Hopefully we can stand together. Yeah, and hug each other. It'd be nice. Yeah.
Well, so thank you for being here. And you know, your knowledge is amazing. Your gratitude is beautiful. And I do see the light of your soul. So thank you so much for this time.
Thank you, Nicole. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Nicole Harvick, and this is my co-host,
Rachel Best. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.